The search and recovery forces and embedded NASA personnel have departed their hotel in Zhezkazgan, the staging site for tonight's landing operations. They'll be making their way to the Zhezkazgan airport to position themselves on their respective Russian Mi-8 helicopters, awaiting takeoff around the time of the deorbit burn, headed for the landing zone. This is Mission Control Houston. If you're just joining us, you're looking at the Soyuz MS-17 spacecraft that departed the International Space Station 14 minutes ago under the command of Russian cosmonaut Sergei Ryzhikov, accompanied by NASA's Kate Rubins and Russian cosmonaut Sergei Sverchkov. They are now free-flying from the station, moving to a point well away from the complex for the deorbit burn that will take place to begin their journey home. The deorbit burn scheduled at 11:01 p.m. Central Time tonight. From Mission Control in Houston and the International Space Station Flight Control Room at the Johnson Space Center, where at this hour Flight controllers not only here, but a half a world away at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow in the town of Korolyov are preparing for the homecoming of Expedition 64 crew members Kate Rubins of NASA and Sergei Ryzhikov and Sergei Kudzverchkov of Roscosmos to wrap up their 185-day mission that has spanned almost 3,000 orbits of the Earth, a mission of 78.4 million miles. We are just less than 31 minutes away from the engine firing of 4 minutes and 39 seconds now that will slow the Soyuz down by 128 meters per second to enable the Soyuz to drop out of orbit to begin its entry back into the Earth's atmosphere, and a landing just 1 hour and 24 minutes from now on the steppe of Kazakhstan, 91 miles to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan, where Russian search and recovery forces will be awaiting the arrival of these 3 crew members who have spent half a year in space. Everything is in great shape aboard the Soyuz spacecraft. All the systems are checked out, ready to go. Just a short time ago, just a few minutes ago, the director of the Cosmonaut Training Center in Star City, Russia, Pavel Vlasov, who directs the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center, radioed up to the crew that conditions at the landing site are calm and peaceful. He described the air as fresh with low humidity and said, "The landing site has the smell of spring. It smells like freshly cut grass. Have a good flight home to your home planet." Those words coming from Pavel Vlasov, the director of the Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center.
And we are standing by
at the airport in Zhezkazgan, the forward staging site for tonight's landing and recovery operations. A dozen Mi-8 helicopters are set to take off a short time from now, most of them heading for the prime landing site to the southeast of Zhezkazgan. 2 of the helicopters to move to the midpoint between the landing site and the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan in the event of a ballistic landing, the unlikely event of a shortfall in the trajectory of the Soyuz back to Earth. And 2 additional helicopters will be poised in the vicinity. All of the bases covered to recover the crew as quickly as possible following their touchdown in their Soyuz MS-17 spacecraft. The 3 returning crew members, Kate Rubins of NASA, Sergei Ryzhikov, who's the Soyuz MS-17 commander and who was also the Expedition 64 commander during this long-duration mission aboard the International Space Station, and flight engineer Sergei Kudzverchkov are in the home stretch of their flight. Rubins, when she lands, will have logged 300 days in space on her 2 flights, the 4th most days in space by a U.S. female astronaut, behind Peggy Whitson, Christina Cook, and Sunny Williams. Sergei Ryzhikov will have logged 185 days in space on his 2 missions over this increment, Expeditions 63-64, and will have totaled 358 days in space on his 2 flights. Kudzverchkov is wrapping up his first flight into space. Some 5 hours ago, aboard the International Space Station, the 3 departing crew members had an opportunity one final time to say goodbye to the crew members who are remaining on board the station, now part of Expedition 65, that officially began with the undocking of the Soyuz from the International Outpost. They had a chance to say farewell to one another and then make their way into the Soyuz spacecraft, where they subsequently closed the hatches. Those hatches swung closed at 5:24 p.m. Central Time, 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time, after which the 3 departing crew members began a series of leak checks on their side of the docking interface, as did the station crew on their side in the Poisk module of the International Space Station. The 3 Expedition 64 crew members who are coming back to Earth this evening, Kate Rubins, Sergei Ryzhikov, and Sergei Kudzverchkov, then donned their Russian Sokol launch and entry suits, conducted leak checks on those suits, closed the hatches to the uppermost portion of the Soyuz spacecraft, the orbital module section, and configured all of their systems, conducted communications checks, and everything is in great shape for tonight's landing. At 8:34 p.m. Central Time, 9:34 p.m. Eastern Time, as the International Space Station flew over the Mongolian-Chinese border, hooks were opened between the Soyuz and the Poisk module. Springs on both sides of the docking interface pushed off against one another, and the Soyuz was free, backing away from the docking port to which it had relocated just a month ago to free up the Rassvet module on the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the station for the arrival last week of 3 new crew members who made their way to the space station, that being Oleg Novitsky, Pyotr Dubrov, and NASA's Mark Vande Hei. The Soyuz slowly backed away. There were 2 firings of Soyuz thrusters and a pair of separation burns to maintain an opening rate and increase that opening rate from the International Space Station. The Soyuz has now moved to a position some 32 kilometers away from the International Space Station in preparation for the deorbit burn that will be coming up less than 25 minutes from now.
"25 minutes till thrust deactivation. Attitude is nominal, and the angle is currently 185.5.
The deorbit burn is scheduled at 11:01 p.m. Central Time. It again will be a 4-minute, 39-second retrograde firing, a braking maneuver of the Soyuz engines to slow the vehicle down by 128 meters per second, allowing it to drop out of orbit. Some 28 minutes after the deorbit burn, pyrotechnics will fire to separate the 3 sections of the Soyuz. The 3 crew members in the center section or descent module will feel the G-forces building up around them as they move through the plasma regime of the Earth's atmosphere. Once they exit the plasma regime, the command will be given to open up the parachutes 15 minutes before touchdown. First a drogue chute, followed by a giant main chute, and the Soyuz will be canted into the correct position for its altimeter to measure its rate of descent and its altitude from the landing site. Just a few seconds before touchdown, soft landing engines will fire, and the Soyuz will be home, with landing scheduled at 11:56 p.m. Central Time, 10:56 a.m. Kazakhstan time on Saturday morning. At the landing site, just a few clouds are noticed at about the 25,000-foot level, visibility in excess of 6 miles. The temperature at landing time is expected to be about 64 degrees Fahrenheit, an ideal Saturday spring morning for the homecoming of Rubins, Ryzhikov, and Kud Sverchkov. Again, the Russian search and recovery forces are ready to go from the Zhezkazgan airport. The various recovery team members, that includes embedded NASA personnel, are already on their respective helicopters. At the time of the deorbit burn, rotors will be spinning, and the helicopters will set off for about a 35-minute helicopter ride from Zhezkazgan to the landing zone, some 91 miles to the southeast. They will arrive in a sequential fashion, will begin to circle in a racetrack fashion around the landing zone, waiting for the arrival of the Soyuz under its chutes. After touchdown, those helicopters will land very quickly in sequential fashion again. The first of the helicopters will be down to erect an inflatable orange medical tent near the capsule, to which the 3 crew members will be carried in their chairs once they are extracted from the Soyuz and have a chance to sit in those chairs for a few minutes to get their land legs back. Again, they'll be carried in those chairs into the medical tent, where they'll be helped out of their Sokol launch and entry suits. They'll get into more comfortable clothing. They'll undergo a series of medical tests before boarding 3 helicopters, one for each crew member, for a 2-hour, 15-minute flight back to Karaganda, Kazakhstan, which was the initial staging city for tonight's landing operations. In Karaganda is a NASA jet and a Gagarin Cosmonaut Training Center aircraft. Those 2 aircraft will be waiting for the arrival of the crew members, who will split up at that point, with Kate Rubins boarding the NASA jet for a flight back to Houston, and the 2 cosmonauts boarding their aircraft for a flight back to their training base in Star City, Russia, outside of Moscow. Two milestones following the deorbit burn, and you will be hearing Soyuz Commander Sergei Ryzhikov through an interpreter calling out the duration of the burn and tank pressures and the delta V, or the change in velocity, as the burn continues for the duration of its 4 minutes and 39 seconds. Once the burn is completed, the uppermost section of the 3-section Soyuz spacecraft, the orbital module, will be depressurized about 10 seconds after the completion of the burn. That will set the stage for its pyrotechnic separation from the rest of the Soyuz vehicle once we have completed the burn about 28 minutes after the deorbit burn, prior to the entrance of the descent module with the 3 crew members back into the Earth's atmosphere. Once the Soyuz has moved to a distance of about 120 kilometers away from the International Space Station, we are expecting VHF voice communications to become ratty and perhaps unavailable because of the distance involved in the geometry between the antennas on the Soyuz spacecraft and the International Space Station. It will be... Sometimes we get lucky and the communications hang in there, sometimes not so much. So we'll see what happens this evening. But once the Soyuz moves toward the vicinity of the landing site, there is a Russian Antonov 26 fixed-wing aircraft that operates as a flying command and control center, through which voice and data will be relayed back to Russian flight controllers at the Russian Mission Control Center outside of Moscow. So we'll be standing by to see whether or not we hang in there with communications all the way down or lose communications. Don't be surprised if we go with a loss of signal for a period of time and then reacquire communications with the Soyuz as it approaches the landing site. As we've mentioned in our earlier broadcast tonight, this is an unprecedented period of human spaceflight activity at the International Space Station, with 14 astronauts and cosmonauts coming and going from the outpost in 4 different spacecraft over a 3-week period. This landing tonight is the second of a 4-act series that will continue next week at the Kennedy Space Center, with the scheduled launch next Thursday on a SpaceX Dragon vehicle, the Endeavour, of Shane Kimbrough, Megan MacArthur, Aki Hoshide, and Thomas Pesquet, as that multinational crew launches from Launch Pad 39A at the Cape to rendezvous and dock to the International Space Station, to expand the station's population from its current 7-person crew to an 11-person crew for a period of time, a short period of time, until the Crew 1 astronauts who launched back in November, Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, Soichi Noguchi, and Shannon Walker, who's the current commander of the International Space Station, until they return, their scheduled undocking and splashdown is scheduled for April 28th. So a busy time at the International Space Station. Air traffic control definitely is the prevailing activity for not only the station astronauts and cosmonauts, but for program officials and the international partnership as they make their way methodically, step by step, to ensure the safe launch and landing and return to Earth of all of these crew members in the continuing permanent human occupancy of the International Laboratory. To give you a sense of all of the vehicles currently at the International Space Station, you can see in this graphic the current configuration. The Soyuz MS-17, of course, undocked a few hours ago, so it's gone, ready for its deorbit burn to begin the trip back to Earth. The Soyuz MS-18 that carried Mark Vande Hei, Oleg Novitsky, and Pyotr Dubrov to the station a week ago is docked to the Earth-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. Also present, the Crew 1 Dragon spacecraft at the zenith or space-facing port of the Harmony module, soon to be joined by a second Crew Dragon, the Crew 2 Dragon, that will dock to the forward port of Harmony. And you see two unpiloted Russian Progress cargo ships and the Northrop Grumman Cygnus cargo ship also present at the International Space Station.
And confirm.
We're now 14 and a half minutes away from the start of the deorbit burn. Again, a 4-minute, 39-second firing of the Soyuz engines to slow it down by 128 meters per second, enabling it to drop out of orbit to begin its high-speed return back to Earth. The Russian search and recovery forces that belong to the Russian civilian agency called Rosaviatsia are all at the Zhezkazgan airport. Those personnel all aboard Russian Mi-8 military helicopters with rotors about to spin up. The first of those helicopters to depart the airport for the landing site at about the time of the deorbit burn, some 12 and a half minutes from now. Amongst the NASA contingent participating in Kazakhstan tonight for tonight's landing and recovery operations include Tricia Mack, who's the Director of Human Spaceflight Programs in Russia, Bill Spetch from the International Space Station Program Office, representing mission integration and operations for tonight's recovery operations. Dr. Natasha Cho, who is Kate Rubin's flight surgeon. A series of Russian nurses attending to the 3 crew members with their own respective flight surgeons as well. NASA Public Affairs Officer Courtney Beasley will be on one of the first helicopters down to the landing site, along with Bill Ingalls, NASA's chief photographer. Astronaut Drew Morgan is representing the astronaut office for tonight's recovery operations, a veteran of a long-duration mission aboard the International Space Station that launched on the 50th anniversary of America's landing on the moon on Apollo 11. Coming up on the 10-minute mark before the deorbit burn, everything quiet aboard the Soyuz vehicle. The Soyuz commander, Sergei Ryzhikov, seated in the center seat of the descent module, the centermost section of the 3-section Soyuz spacecraft, flanked on his left by Sergei Kud-Sverchkov and Kate Rubins on his right. And there's a cutaway view of the descent module. Again, the crew strapped in, having checked out their spacesuits. They are clad in their Sokol launch and entry suits, soon to feel the first effects of Earth's gravity for the first time in more than 6 months.
But the power has been shut off to the sensor. Is that right? One minute has passed, but the flag is still there. And we have, we did send the command, though, for the deactivation. And so power supply to the EKV is not being supplied, but you still have you don't have the flag. Is that right? Yes. And we confirm depot thrusters are firing, and we have like 20 minutes left. Copy. We confirm the maneuver, the SKD. TIG is minus 8 minutes. And on the right info, we're sending the command, and D9, Delta 9 is illuminated. Sierra 9 is illuminated. Copy, Sierra 9 is illuminated. Unintelligible. We copy.
Countdown clocks now hit the 7-minute mark prior to the deorbit burn. 4 minutes and 39-second engine firing to slow the Soyuz down and enable it to drop out of orbit to begin its trip back to Earth. Coming up on the 6-minute mark prior to the deorbit burn, just about 1 hour until touchdown.
Parameters before ESCA deactivation. I have the parameters written down. We have integrated GESO. We have the pressure tank 155 for the first and 157 for the second one. Prop is nominal. And 18 point and 774. 774 is the pressure in the descent module, and for the tanks we have 18.1 and 18.2. Did you say 18.1 and 18.2? Yes, affirmative.
4.5 minutes now until the deorbit burn. Sergei Ryzhikov just a moment ago reading off propulsion parameters for the Russian flight controllers in Korolyov. Everything in good shape. The stage is set for the start of the journey home for Rubens Ryzhikov and Kud Sverchkov.
One minute till ESCA thrust activation, and everything's fine on board. We copy. You please depress. You can depress the transmit button during the thruster firing. Copy.
Flight controllers in Korolyov will be expecting Ryzhikov to provide continuous commentary of the progress of the deorbit burn so that his reports can match up to all of the parameters that the flight controllers are seeing at their consoles. In Korolyov, you're looking at a live view from a balcony camera overlooking the Russian flight control room. 2.5 minutes away now from the deorbit burn.
One minute to ESCA on board. Everything is A-OK.
"90 seconds now until the deorbit burn.
We're getting close to 1 minute before ESCA. We copy. SKD TIG -1.
Less than a minute before the initiation of the deorbit burn, the Russian Mi-8 helicopters at the airport in Zhezkazgan have their rotors spinning, ready to take off in sequential fashion, heading for the landing site.
Copy. Going to page 51.
30 seconds.
30 seconds to SKD TIG.
Выбираем формат контроль, маневр.
Select maneuver or SKD burn. Monitoring. Copy. Transmit.
10 seconds away, standing by for the start of the deorbit burn.
Copy. SKD.
Engine start. Deorbit burn underway.
Контроль.
Current position 0:47, 0:48 seconds. 5.5 Delta V.
Change in velocity being reported now by Sergei Ryzhikov, the Soyuz commander. This is a 4-minute, 39-second retrograde maneuver.
13.8 over 30 seconds. And we're on page 53, working for the table. Copy. O2 supply is activated from the gas analyzer.
Двигатель работает минуту. Собрали.
1 minute, 26.2 Delta V. KDU parameters are nominal. Propellant consumption nominal. 1 minute, 15 seconds, 33 and 0.8 Delta V.
The Soyuz continues to decelerate as planned. Now a minute and a half into the burn.
SKD firing 1 minute, 30 seconds into the thruster operation. 41.0 Delta V. KDU parameters are nominal. Copy, Sergei the second. 1 minute, 49 Delta V after 1 minute, 47 seconds. Copy. 2 minutes. 54.4 Delta V. Copy, and that is nominal. We confirm the burn is going nominally. 2 minutes, 15 seconds. 61.6 Delta V.
Two and a half minutes into the burn. About 2 minutes to go.
2 minutes, 30 seconds. 68.9 Delta V. All parameters and propellant consumption is nominal. Copy. 2 minutes, 45 seconds. 74.8 Delta V.
Three minutes into the burn, everything is going as planned.
At the specified time. At 3 minutes, 83.0 Delta V, and all Cadeau integrated propulsion system. System parameters are nominal. At 3 minutes, 15 seconds, at Delta V gained 88.9. 3.5 minutes, 96.9. Propellant consumption is nominal. Copy.
Approaching the 4-minute mark into the burn, about 39 seconds left.
4 minutes of SKD firing. LTV gained 109.9. All Cadeau parameters are still nominal. Copy. We're standing by for main engine cutoff command in about 20 seconds. Copy and concur. 10 seconds to main engine cutoff. Command 124 Delta V. Copy.
And the deorbit burn is complete and reported to have been perfectly executed. Kate Rubins, Sergei Sverchkov, and Soyuz Commander Sergei Ryzhikov on their way home.
At 070613, KSDBO is open. In a docking compartment, we have stable pressure at 744, and the pressure is dropping in orbital module.
And as planned, the orbital module, the topmost section of the 3-section Soyuz vehicle, being depressurized. This in advance of the pyrotechnic separation of the 3 portions of the Soyuz spacecraft coming up.
We can verify BOS power and BOS readiness. Everything's in order on board. The pressure is rising a little bit on board in the docking compartment because of O2 being supplied into the cabin. Right now it's 748. Otherwise, everything is nominal on board. And in 10 minutes, we're planning to seal the pressure helmets. Please go through the last-minute buddy checks. Verify that your straps are strapped in tightly. That your knee pads are positioned properly. Moscow, we cannot understand anything you're saying. The
Soyuz is moving further and further away from the International Space Station to a point where VHF voice communications is expected to become ratty, if not unavailable, for a period of time until the spacecraft approaches the landing site and begins to provide communications capability with the Antonov 26 Airborne Command Center, the fixed-wing aircraft that is part of the search and recovery forces that is airborne, flying around the landing zone to act as a relay station for data and voice back to the Russian Mission Control Center.
16 seconds left to module separation. Copy. Please check your knee pads. Make sure that the ODF books are, the hard copies are secured well. Moscow, we cannot understand what you're saying. Please repeat.
Everything quiet here in Mission Control in Houston as the voice communications begins to diminish between the Soyuz spacecraft and the Russian flight control team, simply because of the distance now that the Soyuz has moved away from the International Space Station and the location and positioning of the antennas on the Soyuz relative to the relay antennas for VHF communications through the station.
Favor, if you can hear Moscow. Before module separation, please verify the positioning of your knee pads. Make sure that the hard copies of your procedures are securely restrained with bungees or straps. We cannot hear you, Moscow. We don't understand what you were saying. Just letting you know that we are aware that we have module separation coming up at 07:29:55. Everything's still ready on board. Copy.
Sergei Ryzhikov reassuring flight controllers in Moscow, even though they cannot hear the flight controllers calling them at this point. They understand that we're within 14 minutes of the scheduled separation of the three sections of the Soyuz through pyrotechnics. This is Mission Control Houston. Based on the last report from Sergei Ryzhikov, everything going very well on board the Soyuz MS-17. The next major event coming up in about 11 minutes, the separation of the three sections of the Soyuz, as the descent module with the three crew members strapped inside will then fly free with its onboard computers targeting the landing site to the southeast of the town of Zhezkazgan. This is an animation of the separation of those three sections. The orbital module and the instrumentation and propulsion module separate from the descent module that then enters the Earth's atmosphere, building up heat, repelling the heat through its heat shield before the deployment of a drogue chute and then the large main chute. We'll talk more about the physics of the chute deployment and the behavior of the Soyuz spacecraft once we get past module separation. Landing is still scheduled for 11:56 p.m. Central Time, 10:56 a.m. Kazakhstan time on Saturday morning. The weather reports indicate clear skies, very light winds, temperature around 64 degrees Fahrenheit. And with the completion of the deorbit burn a short time ago, the Russian Mi-8 helicopters are all airborne en route to the landing site. This is all very carefully choreographed and timed so that the helicopters arrive in a circular racetrack pattern around the landing zone shortly before the arrival of the Soyuz under its chutes. The separation of the three sections of the Soyuz will occur at an altitude of about 87 miles, all done by automatic commanding from the onboard computers, firing pyrotechnics to enable the three sections to separate from one another. In the center section or descent module, Soyuz commander Sergei Ryzhikov flying under the call sign of Favore. In the center seat, flanked on his left by Sergei Sverchkov and on his right by Kate Rubins. The landing site coordinates calculated by the Russian Flight Control Team in Korolyov call for the Soyuz to be targeting a landing spot at 47.2 north, 69.3 east.
The pressure helmets are sealed, and the the avionics are activated. Is that correct? And you have the Rus handle in your hands, correct?
So visors are now down for the 3 crew members and the descent module of the Soyuz MS-17. Some 6 minutes away from the expected separation of the modules. Countdown clocks here in Mission Control in Houston ticking backward toward the expected landing time, just over 31 minutes from now.
Moscow Station. Separation of the modules is in 4.5 minutes. Copy, favore.
So a bit of continuing communications confirming the expected time for the module separation around 11:29 p.m. Central Time.